Everyone. This is Deborah Brenagosi, co-founder and executive director of Signal Culture, coming to you live from our studios in Loveland, Colorado. I'm here today with our current artist in residence, Jason Zeh, and I'm going to flip the camera around. And now, there you are.
Hello. How's it going?
So, can you introduce yourself a little bit?
So, I'm Jason Zeh. I am originally from Northwest Ohio in Bowling Green. And I currently live and work out of Morgantown, West Virginia. So I guess my background is in underground noise and experimental music. For a lot of years, I worked exclusively with sound, with cassette tapes. And then in my new life, I have transitioned to real-time generative visuals as well. So that's what brings me here.
Great. And how did you get involved with all this to start? Video, experimental sound?
So when I was in graduate school in my MFA program at University of Kansas, I had a fantastic professor, Benjamin Rosenthal, who,
one of our alums.
Yeah, who really pushed me in a video direction. I had already started trying to think about what if I took some of the stuff that I was doing with audio cassette and applied it to VHS tape and VCRs, and started playing around a little bit with video feedback, but it wasn't until my MFA program where I really started learning about the basics of video art in a more formal way.
Sure.
And so actually at that time I experimented a lot with video and then decided that I wanted to focus more on the performative aspect of things, and really devoted myself to studying Cycling 74's Max programming environment. So I started programming interactive and performable media in Max, and then my COVID project was really digging into Touch Designer and getting better with that. So that's how we ended up here.
All right, great. And just curious, because we have users of both and people who've been, Max curious or Touch Designer curious. Can you talk about how you feel like they're sort of alike and different? I'm not asking you to like rate them or anything, just.
So the reason that one of the reasons that I really started digging into Touch Designer was during the pandemic, I needed a way to do live events that had some sort of online component to them. And I started playing around with live streaming software, and it seemed to me that integrating Touch Designer with something like OBS for processing video in real time and then sending it out into the internet was a really good thing to pursue. So I had not really explored jitter in the Max environment previously. Mostly what I was doing with Max was programming control and triggering events. So really in the Max side, not even the MSP side. So when I started trying to translate some of that skills into Touch Designer, it was like they were similar enough that I felt like I understood the principle of Touch Designer, but they were different enough that I was completely lost and got really frustrated a lot of times because there were things that I wanted to do in Max and I didn't know how to tell Touch Designer to do it. So maybe that addresses that question.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Cool. And could you talk a little bit about some of the themes of your work and just about your work in general?
Yeah. So my previous body of work was thinking a lot about the voice and intimacy surrounding the voice and the way identity sort of gets encoded in the voice. So the most recent body of work that I was doing kind of in that realm Starting around 2017, I trained a machine learning algorithm on thousands of secrets that people posted anonymously on Reddit. And so this was before AI was getting quite as quote unquote good as it is now. So some of the outputs that it was giving were more interesting than they are now. But what was really exciting to me was looking at these computer generated secrets gave some clues into the kinds of things, the kinds of taboo desires or struggles with identity that people were posting about anonymously using these burner accounts on Reddit. So you would see, like, you would have this text that wasn't clearly stating something specific, but there were clues that the speaker was struggling with some sort of aspect of themselves. So I created a number of performance pieces using that text. One of them, I built a Max for Live device that allowed me to, as I was playing a sampler instrument of recordings of my voice reciting these secrets, this Max for Live device was then showing me the text. So I was trying to read along live with this sampler of my voice that I was performing. And that piece was a lot of, it was really awkward. And, like, uncomfortable to watch. And there were a lot of just like weird pauses and stutters and like these attempts to remain in sync with the pre-recorded version of myself and sort of like exploring this broken space between this physical self and this digital self that I was performing. So that was the previous body of work. And now what I'm working on now and here, I really lucked out and got to go to the Atacama Desert in Chile in last May and decided to do LiDAR scans of a bunch of the objects that I encountered there. So I've been building these performable video objects out of LiDAR scans and then processing them here.
Great. And while a lot of our folks will know what LiDAR is, there are people who won't. So can you just talk a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, so it's a 3D scanning technology. I use an app on my phone called Polycam. It has a LiDAR mode that just sort of sends out light and kind of measures the distance of things. It also has a burst photography mode, and you basically just take your phone and go around the object that you're trying to scan, and it just takes, 100 pictures or something like that. And it uses the gyroscope inside your phone to tell where it is now versus where it is now versus where it is now. And then it stitches together that model. And then you can bring the model into Touch Designer, and it's really exciting because you just sort of dive in and you can see your geometry and you can see your textures, and you can sort of get in there like circuit bending almost, a 3D model, and just twiddle around with the geometry and twiddle around with the textures in the way that you would like poke at a Casio keyboard or something.
That's cool. So you're sort of warping the mesh live?
Yeah.
Nice.
And so then I've been mapping the geometry to knobs that I can then control live too. And one of the really cool things is that really opened up in the last few months. I got the opportunity to be an alpha tester for Touch Designer's new POP operator family. This is like deep dive stuff, so sorry. But like,
this is the crowd if you're going to deep dive, so don't worry.
So in Touch Designer, the 3D operators, the SOP family, currently lives on the CPU, which is far less efficient than processes on the GPU. All of the 2D texture stuff happens on the GPU, so it's super efficient. Well, they have been working at developing a new family that allows us to run 3D processes on the GPU, so it can process that data so much more efficiently. So controlling 3D models in real time using POPs is so much less processor intensive than
Great.
using SOPs on the CPU, and it is crazy. So look forward to those being available.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. And we have some of your LiDAR scans over here. Should we take a look at that now?
Sure.
And I'm just gonna, if you don't, oh, nope, I can't do that. Well, it's just gonna have a little bit of glare. There we go. I'm at an angle now where it's not as bad. And so can you talk about what we're seeing?
Yeah, so the main object here is like it was a mound of eroded sand that had been sort of like eroded by water running over it, and then it had some sort of plant or succulent growing out of it, and it was really beautiful, so I scanned that, and that's one of the main models in here. And then some of the other stuff there is actually an AI-generated 3D model. So I had been doing some AI processing of like some swirly neuron kind of structures that I took a screenshot of that, ran it through a Hugging Face image to 3D model AI generating thingy. And so these weird blobs are warped versions of that are sort of duplicated and twisted. And then they have the texture from that original 3D model applied on top of them.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then the background has like some polygonal waves with other AI processed imagery sort of distorted and turned into, I don't know, kind of cool water. And then the one thing in the middle that's kind of fleshy, so that is, I was messing with video of my mouth and using AI to interpolate between frames of video of my mouth. Like I took out screenshots of frames, interpolated between those frames, and then started running that video through real-time AI stuff to kind of start stretching it out and turning it into almost like the strata of like I don't know, like layers of rock. And so that stuff is then on top, that texture is on top of the blobby thing. Yeah.
And so with you, would you say you're using AI technology sort of as a way to do animation a little more quickly than you process other ways?
I think that the way that I'm trying to use AI here is as another way of processing signal. So sort of thinking about video input that I am making and text that I'm writing as sort of like complementary parameters for processing signal. So I think that's how I'm thinking about it. I'm also thinking about it as like, so while I was in Chile, I was learning about some of the lithium mining. One of the main exports is lithium, which of course is a mineral that is essential for all of the technology that we use. And I've been sort of thinking about how contemporary technology kind of hides the environmental destruction that it relies upon. And AI is kind of implicated in environmental destruction as well with all of the electricity that it uses. And so I think that I'm trying to figure out like what it means to use these tools to create something that I think of as life-giving art, but something that is actually kind of traumatic for the earth. Trying to think about what that means.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what the answer is yet.
It's a complicated question, so yeah. And then what we're seeing on this monitor is this source going into the Hearn Video Lab over here. And then being mixed with, what is it being mixed with? Here, tell us about it.
Yeah. So I've got actually two video sources produced with the LiDAR scans that are coming out as two separate sources into the Hearn. One of them is going through the MVIP module, the Dave Jones MVIP module.
Right.
So there's like a raw version of the video going in, and then there's an MVIP version of the video going in, and then there are a couple other instances of other videos coming in from that material. Yeah.
Nice. And so you are mixing and also colorizing on the Hearn here. So this section, the linear key matrix, is where you can take your sources from the video patch bay and use control voltage to trigger points on the matrix. Video comes out, becomes a reference video for the colorizer, and then comes luminance values are what you use to determine what areas are going to be colorized what. That comes to the output fader, and then out there.
Yeah.
So.
And I spent the entire day today playing with the Hearn because there are just these like beautiful velvety color textures and gradients that it can get, and I can't get enough of it. It's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what made you apply here? Because you can do the LiDAR processing to some degree, you know, at home. So what's different here?
I wanted to get the opportunity to play with these incredible tools that I could not touch otherwise.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think I even fully realized the scope of what I was stepping into. It's kind of crazy. I sent a text to a friend of mine saying like, the thing that I'm playing with right now was probably used by Namjoon Paik.
Well, I can't guarantee that, but yeah, Judd Yalcott did collaborate with Namjoon. Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy.
It is crazy. Yeah.
I don't even know how to like wrap my brain around it. So.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and like, so here's another thing. So I set up a show in Morgantown for an upright bassist recently, and I was talking to him about his instrument. And at WVU last semester, we had this traveling exhibition called Violins of Hope. That is these restored violins that were owned by Holocaust survivors. And both of those conversations had me thinking about the fact that like people who play wood instruments have this like embedded history in these objects that they feel such a bodily connection to, that it sort of like ties you to history in a way that I don't get to experience ever. Because my computer I built 2 or 3 years ago, and in probably within the next 5 years all of the components will be e-waste. You know? And so this is maybe the closest that we get to that experience of like having instruments with history in media art, and this is awesome.
Yeah, some of this stuff may be older than you, literally. So. Yeah. Great. And do you want to talk about your festival coming up?
Yeah. So I am helping to curate the West Virginia Mountaineer Short Film Festival in Morgantown, West Virginia. It happens at WVU. And Jason and Deborah are going to perform. I decided this year to call up the main person who runs it. And I was like, look, I've got a crazy idea. I was like, okay. And I was like, WVU has a planetarium. And he was like, okay. So I started talking to the planetarium about trying to do an event there. So Deborah and Jason are going to perform in the planetarium. We're also going to show some experimental media works in the planetarium. And you should totally apply. Anyone out there in viewing area should submit stuff to the West Virginia Mountaineer Short Film Festival. It's really great. So,
Great, and we'll put a link in the description
yeah,
for that.
yeah. Especially if you have done stuff with domes before, if you want to submit a dome projection piece, that would be awesome.
Nice, nice. And is there anything else that you'd like to talk about that we haven't covered? And my Jason says to you, great stuff, Jason. It's all Jasons all the time.
No, I don't think so. I mean, thank you so much for having me. I have been wanting to come out here for a long time, and I'm happy that it finally worked out. So,
Yeah, we are too.
yeah,
So it's been a fun week.
yeah.
Alrighty. Well, I'm gonna end on a little still of your Vimeo where people can go to see more of your work, and that's just jasonzeh.com, like that. And thank you very much. Let's see if I can figure out how to exit here. Yes, okay. See you later.